Imagine a woman so fearless, so devoted to her faith and her people, that she would risk everything to defy the mightiest military power of her age. Yet, her story is absent from most Bibles. The Book of Judith, cherished in Catholic, Eastern Orthodox, Ethiopian Orthodox, and Anglican traditions, has been excluded in others perhaps considered too controversial, too unsettling. But why? Why would such a bold and faith-filled account be cast aside? The narrative of Judith begins during one of Israel's darkest hours. The Assyrian Empire, led by the relentless king Nebuchadnezzar, seeks total supremacy, not merely territorial conquests, but the complete submission of all nations and peoples. Nebuchadnezzar's might is unrivaled, and his formidable army, commanded by the ruthless General Holofernes, advances like an unstoppable storm, destroying everything in its path. Israel stands helpless, its cities exposed, its hope fading. In this moment of despair, Judith emerges a woman of unwavering faith, sharp intellect, and unparalleled bravery. But this is no idealized tale of a grieving widow. The Book of Judith is vivid, raw, and at times shockingly violent. Judith steps forward with a mission that defies every norm of her era. Her story is one of confronting the insurmountable, armed only with her faith, wisdom, and an unyielding determination. If you've ever wondered why such a remarkable story was omitted from so many versions of the Bible, join us as we journey through this forbidden and extraordinary tale. The story of Judith unveils layers of faith, courage, and divine providence that make her one of Scripture's most captivating and formidable heroines. Are you ready to rediscover the tale of a woman whose unwavering resolve changed the course of history? To truly understand Judith's journey, we must first set the scene. The Book of Judith opens not in Israel, but in the heart of the mighty Assyrian Empire, a realm determined to bring every nation to its knees. Nebuchadnezzar, the king of the Assyrians, demands absolute submission, and when nearby nations refuse to comply, he unleashes a brutal campaign of conquest and terror. Enter Holofernes, the king's most trusted general and the instrument of his wrath. Holofernes is no mere soldier. He is the very embodiment of Nebuchadnezzar's military power, a force of destruction that inspires dread in all who oppose Assyria. As his army sweeps through the lands, cities crumble in their wake, and those who dare to resist are met with unspeakable violence. By the time he reaches Israel's borders, his forces are like an unstoppable flood, vast, merciless, and fueled by the might of one of history's greatest empires. Israel finds itself on the brink of annihilation. Encircled by the Assyrian forces, the leaders are paralyzed with fear, their resolve weakening as they witness the fate of neighboring nations. The people, desperate and despairing, cling to their faith, but begin to question if God has forsaken them. In this moment of utter hopelessness, a widow from a small town emerges as the unlikeliest of heroes. But how could a single woman, a widow with no military training, hope to confront the might of Assyria? Judith's story unfolds not through physical strength or armed resistance, but through unshakable faith and unmatched courage that would bring her face to face with her people's enemy. Judith is introduced as a widow, but her identity extends far beyond her marital status. She is a woman of striking beauty, profound wisdom, and unwavering faith. Her name, meaning Jewish or praised, foreshadows her destiny as a savior of her people and a defender of Israel's honor. Her power is not rooted in wealth or physical prowess, but in a deep, abiding trust in God. She lives in Bethulia, a small town perched precariously on the edge of the Assyrian advance. While the elders of Bethulia are paralyzed with doubt, uncertain of their next move, Judith's response is both extraordinary and bold. She begins by fasting, praying, and humbling herself before God, donning sackcloth and ashes. Judith seeks divine guidance, not only for herself, but for all of Israel. Her story begins in solitude, surrender, and trust in a God she knows is capable of deliverance. But Judith is not merely pious, she is deeply perceptive, keenly aware of the despair consuming her people. When the elders begin to lose faith, even questioning if God has abandoned them, Judith confronts them with righteous indignation. In Judith 8:12, she boldly challenges their wavering trust, declaring, "Who are you to test God this day, to take his place?" Her words cut through their fear, reminding them that God's power transcends human limitations. At a time when women rarely held positions of leadership or influence, Judith rises above societal norms with a strength drawn not from authority, but from an unshakable conviction. She assures the leaders of Bethulia that just as God has delivered Israel in the past, he will do so again if only they believe. Judith's faith becomes her greatest weapon, and she wields it with absolute confidence. But she is prepared to do more than speak words of encouragement. She devises a plan, one that is both daring and dangerous, requiring extraordinary courage and faith. It is a plan that will place her directly in the path of Holofernes, risking her life to secure her people's salvation. As the Assyrian army tightens its grip, Judith unveils her audacious strategy. It is not a call to arms or a plea for negotiation. Instead, Judith decides to infiltrate the enemy camp alone and confront the fearsome general herself. The very thought shocks the elders of Bethulia, leaving them awestruck and uncertain. Yet Judith's faith is unwavering. She believes her mission is divinely appointed and that God will deliver Israel through her hand. Judith prepares herself with great care, understanding that her success depends not only on faith, but also on wisdom and cunning. She sheds her widow's garb, removing the sackcloth and ashes, and instead adorns herself in her finest garments. She anoints her skin with fragrant oils, decorates herself with jewelry, and styles her hair with precision. Judith transforms into a vision of beauty and elegance, knowing that appearances can be a powerful tool in the hands of a woman guided by God's will. The people of Bethulia watch with a mixture of awe and fear. Some may doubt her intentions, wondering if she is sacrificing herself in vain. But Judith knows the significance of her actions. Her transformation is more than physical, it is a spiritual preparation for the task ahead. In Judith 10:12, she declares with bold confidence, "The Lord has struck him down by the hand of a woman," foretelling the downfall of Holofernes. Under the cover of night, Judith and her maid slip through the city gates, making their way toward the Assyrian camp. When the guards see her, they are captivated by her beauty and allow her passage. The audacity of an unarmed woman walking into the enemy camp astonishes them. She claims to have fled Bethulia and seeks an audience with Holofernes, offering him critical intelligence that could aid in his conquest of the city. Word of her arrival quickly reaches Holofernes, who, intrigued by her beauty and boldness, summons her to his tent. Thus begins Judith's calculated and divinely inspired mission, a confrontation that will determine the fate of Israel. Faith, courage, and divine retribution. Judith stands victorious in the tent of Holofernes, the ruthless general who had once been a symbol of terror to her people. This act of deliverance, executed with steady resolve, changes the course of history and becomes a testament to the power of faith over brute strength. From the moment Judith entered Holofernes' camp, she knew that deception and divine guidance would be her weapons. She approached Holofernes with calculated humility, presenting herself as a humble widow seeking to serve. Her words, woven with charm and subtlety, were a web of half-truths and strategic ambiguity. She played to Holofernes' ego, feeding his belief in his own invincibility, and subtly hinted at her supposed divine favor. Each carefully chosen word deepened his confidence, leading him to believe she was the key to his conquest of Israel. Holofernes, captivated by her beauty and wit, was entirely deceived. To him, Judith was a submissive and alluring woman sent to ensure his victory. But Judith, in truth, was a lioness cloaked in humility, waiting for the right moment to strike. She remained steadfast in her mission, fully aware of the stakes and the divine purpose guiding her actions. The tension reached its peak as Judith found herself alone in the enemy's stronghold, face to face with the very man who had sown terror across countless lands. Yet, her heart remained steady, her spirit unshaken. Holofernes, blind to the danger before him, invited her to a lavish feast. Intoxicated by her beauty and his own arrogance, he saw only an opportunity to revel in his perceived dominance. Judith, maintaining her composure, accepted his invitation, hiding her fierce resolve behind the guise of a submissive servant. The banquet unfolded, a spectacle of indulgence and excess. Judith played her role masterfully, appealing to Holofernes' sense of power and superiority. Meanwhile, the general drank heavily, his confidence swelling with each sip. To him, Judith was merely another prize, a spoil of war meant to entertain and flatter. But to Judith, Holofernes was the embodiment of oppression, the symbol of every threat looming over her people. As the night deepened, Holofernes grew increasingly drunk, his defenses lowered, his arrogance blinding him to the danger in his midst. Judith watched and waited with the patience of one who knows her purpose. The camp fell into silence, and the mighty general, now helpless and intoxicated, succumbed to a drunken slumber. This was the moment Judith had prepared for. Standing over the once terrifying figure, she took up his own sword, a weapon that had brought fear and destruction to her people. But in her hands, it became an instrument of deliverance. With steady hands and unyielding courage, Judith struck. In one swift, decisive motion, she severed Holofernes' head, silencing the symbol of oppression and securing the victory her people so desperately needed. Judith's act was not merely an act of physical bravery. It was a profound demonstration of faith and divine justice. She had risked everything: her life, her honor, her very future, on her belief that God would deliver Israel through her hand. And in that moment, her faith was rewarded. Carrying Holofernes' severed head, Judith returned to Bethulia, her mission complete. Her people, who had been paralyzed by fear, now rallied in triumph. The sight of their enemy's downfall reignited their courage and faith. The Assyrian army, discovering their leader's death, descended into chaos and fled, leaving Israel victorious. Judith's story is a timeless reminder that true strength lies not in physical power or worldly might, but in faith, courage, and unwavering conviction. Her actions transformed the fate of her people and revealed that even in the darkest of times, deliverance is possible for those who trust in divine providence. Courage and the divine providence that worked through her. In Judith 15:10, they praise her, saying, "You are the glory of Jerusalem, the great pride of Israel." The high honor of our race, Judith's triumph becomes a moment of renewal for her people, a testament to the power of unwavering faith and the miracles that can arise when one dares to trust completely in God. As she stands before the people of Bethulia, the severed head of Holofernes displayed as proof of her deed, the atmosphere transforms. Where there had been despair, there is now hope. Where fear once reigned, courage now takes hold. Judith's actions inspire not only her own town, but all of Israel, uniting them in a renewed confidence in God's protection and power. The Assyrian army, once an unstoppable force, is now a scattered and disoriented horde. Without Holofernes, their symbol of strength and leadership, their ranks crumble into chaos. The Israelites, emboldened by Judith's victory, pursue their enemies with vigor, turning what seemed to be an inevitable defeat into a resounding triumph. What began as a siege designed to crush Israel becomes a victory that will be sung for generations, a story of deliverance that defies human understanding. Judith's journey does not end with this battle. She remains a beacon of wisdom and humility, returning to her life in Bethulia with no desire for personal glory or power. Despite the reverence and honor bestowed upon her, she chooses to live quietly, dedicating herself to prayer and service to God. Her humility underscores the heart of her story, that true strength comes not from worldly ambition, but from a deep trust in God's plan. The story of Judith is one of faith triumphant over fear, of courage overcoming overwhelming odds, and of divine justice executed through human hands. It reminds us that even in the darkest moments, one person's faith and obedience to God can change the course of history. Judith's name becomes synonymous with bravery, wisdom, and trust in divine providence, a legacy that continues to inspire and challenge believers to this day. Judith's courage echoes through the ages as a powerful reminder of the strength that comes when one places their full trust in God. Her victory song, expressed in Judith 16:13, encapsulates the triumphant spirit of her faith. I will sing to my God a new song. O Lord, you are great and glorious, wonderful in strength, invincible. This declaration, sung by Judith in the aftermath of her victory, becomes more than just a personal praise. It is a victory cry for all of Israel, a celebration of divine power made manifest through an unassuming widow. As the people of Israel gather to offer sacrifices and lift songs of praise, they acknowledge the extraordinary truth. God had delivered them through the hands of someone the world might have seen as weak or insignificant. But in Judith, they find that God's strength is made perfect in weakness, and through her faith, he performed the impossible. The story of Judith becomes a timeless anthem of courage, a testament to the power of faith to overcome insurmountable odds. Judith's victory, however, is not the end of her story. The Book of Judith tells us that she lives a long, peaceful life, honored and respected by all. Yet, she remains single, devoting herself wholly to God. Despite the adoration she receives, Judith does not seek personal glory or fulfillment through marriage. Her independence speaks to her unwavering devotion to God alone, a path that few would dare to follow. Her legacy is one of quiet strength and steadfast faith. Judith's life challenges each of us to reflect on the risks we are willing to take when we believe in God's power. Her story asks, how far are we willing to go to stand for what is right, to trust God's plan even when the road seems impossible? Judith's bravery and trust in God offer a profound example of how courage, when rooted in faith, can overcome any darkness. For those inspired by Judith's story and her incredible journey, there is an opportunity to explore more hidden figures of strength and faith in the Bible. Figures whose stories are not often told, but whose actions have shaped the course of history and are waiting to inspire us all. Would you like to hear more about such hidden figures? Let us continue to dive deep into these powerful, often forgotten stories that remind us of God's incredible providence and power. Judith's story is not just one of the past, it is a call for us all to live fearlessly, walking in faith as she did. Judith's story, though ancient, remains ever relevant, a beacon of hope for all generations. Her courage, her unwavering faith, and her devotion to God serve as a model for anyone facing overwhelming odds or moments of doubt. In a world that often values strength in numbers and worldly power, Judith shows us that God's strength can manifest through the humblest of vessels. Her life invites us to reconsider what it means to be truly powerful. It is not in physical might or public recognition, but in quiet faith and the willingness to step forward when others retreat. Judith's victory was not just a personal triumph, but a demonstration of God's glory and how he can work through those who are obedient and willing to trust in his plan, no matter how daunting. In the end, Judith's legacy is one of peace and victory achieved through surrender to God's will. She didn't seek glory for herself, but in her humility, she became a vessel through which God's power was made manifest. Her story challenges us. What are we willing to risk in our own lives to see God's will fulfilled? Like Judith, we are called to step out in faith, even when the way seems unclear, knowing that God will guide us and empower us to accomplish what we cannot do alone. May her story inspire us all to live fearlessly, to walk boldly in our faith, and to trust that God's providence will lead us to victory even when the odds seem insurmountable. Judith's legacy is not just a chapter from the past, it's a challenge for today and for every day. Will we choose to trust God like Judith and let our faith shape the world around us?